Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Mattel Jurassic World Survival release. We have another of the Frenzy Packs, this time the Dimetrodon, and what a strange looking Dimetrodon we have today. It looks like it's pretty much the same sort of Dimetrodon we had previously, except they've just obviously added different things to it, like the head sculpt is the same style and everything as the older one, which I actually would have preferred they updated it a little bit, but it is what it is. It still looks okay, and it is definitely the same size as the older Dimetrodon, except for the fact that the sail is a bit larger, so there's no real surprises as far as that goes. But it's, you know, when it comes to kind of like a mutated version, I guess it's kind of fun. You know, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but it looks pretty cool. But here on the back, you can see the Plesiosaurus, the Vespersaurus, the Monolophosaurus, and Dimetrodon are the figures that you would find in this wave, all of which we will have reviewed after this review, except for the Monolophosaurus. So let's go ahead, pop this out of the box, and check it out. So here is our Dimetrodon, now loose from its plastic prison. Go ahead, turn the tail in potentially the way it's supposed to be. Kind of confusing, actually, as to how it should be. There's also like a weird little gap right there, which is a little strange, but we're going to go ahead and readjust the camera here just a little bit, bring it up a little higher to make it easier to look at. So starting here in the head sculpt of the Dimetrodon, you can see it looks okay. It's got some pretty nice looking scale detail, some pretty crisp scale detail as well. We can see the nostrils sculpted out. It doesn't look, I mean, there's a little variation to the sizes of the scales, but for the most part, they stay pretty close to the same kind of general size. You can see the same thing for the lower jaw here. There is a lighter tone for the lower jaw. We have kind of like a dark bluish tone, like a dark blue-green sort of tone here for the majority of the body color. You also have part of the sail popping up here on the top of the head with a yellowish tone covering up that area, and that does look pretty nice as well when it comes to the fine detail. We do have an articulated jaw, of course. The teeth look a little bit strange on this one, but they kind of look a little bit sharper than they used to, but at the same time, definitely some awkwardness. There's also a lot of sloppiness when it comes to the paintwork of the teeth, which you can see over here. It's no better, even like paint kind of sticking from tooth to tooth, and it looks pretty rough. But inside the mouth, we do have a really nicely sculpted tongue with a beautiful pinkish tone over top. That pinkish tone only covers the tongue and the skin stretching there on the inside of the mouth, unfortunately. You can see the teeth in the lower jaw look actually nice as far as the sculpt goes, and the paint. I think that whole area looks pretty good. All the teeth are sculpted individually, painted individually, and look pretty decent. It's the teeth on the upper jaw that are definitely a bit sloppy. You also have some darker coloration here, like a dark brown that sort of splatters under the eye and even over the eye a little bit, and we also have a yellow eye with a dark brown sort of slit-like pupil, and that all looks okay. As you move here into the neck, you see a few osteoderms pick up, but pretty much the same type of scales that we saw in the face, maybe just slightly smaller and a little bit bumpier. You also have a little bit of like extra skin here hanging down on the underside of the throat as well, almost like it looks like it's sculpted in similar fashion to this little area of the extra part of the sail up there on the back of the neck. Articulation-wise, in this area, we have a swivel for sure, but I don't know if we have any forward. No, we don't. It does not go up and down or really left and right, just swivel. And that's odd. I would expect it definitely to go up and down. I don't know why. I don't know if maybe it's just jammed or if that's just really the articulation of the neck, but it does not seem to be going forward at all. Just swivels, which is definitely not good articulation for something like this. But as we move into the body, again, you have pretty much the same sort of bumpy scales here on the upper body, but as you move down into the legs, you can see a very reptilian style scaling, almost snake-like scaling, moving down through the legs. We have some nice muscle definition. You can see the elbow, a few bumpy osteoderms on the back of the front leg, and then you move down into the foot sculpt, and you've got some nicely sculpted toes with some scoots down the toes, and the claws look pretty decent, but they're unpainted, of course. Articulation in the leg, just forward and back. I don't think we have nothing out away from the body, but we usually don't for these type of figures. As you move up here into the back, you start to see a dark brown kind of splattering down into the body a little bit. You can also see that dark brown follows the spines as you move up through the sail, so you do have that kind of flashiness with the dark darker tone of the brown and the yellowish tone of the skin of the sail playing off of each other, and it does look pretty good, and the actual skin texture up there in the sail does look really nice and really vibrant. Another thing that's interesting about this, we have these kind of like spikes that lead off of the top. The entire sail is actually a rubber. A very, very stiff rubber, but it is kind of like a real feel sort of rubber, which is kind of cool. And, you know, that helps to make sure that these little spikes up here are not sharp and, you know, cannot hurt anybody. But it's also interesting just to see like a rubber sail on a Spinosaurus from Mattel. As you move into the rear leg, again, you've got the same kind of visual of the skin texture with those very snake-like scales, as well as, again, the nice musculature of the leg. You've got the kneecap there in the front, and then, of course, the foot sculpt moving down looks pretty good. Nice bending to the toes. And the claws, again, are sculpted nicely. Not really any fine detail in them, and no paintwork whatsoever, articulation-wise in the leg. Just forward and back as per usual. And then, obviously, you saw earlier there was a swivel tail. But as you move out through the tail, I don't know if I have this in the right spot. It kind of looks like it is, but kind of looks like it's not. Having a hard time kind of lining that up. I mean, up here, that looks like that's the way it probably should go, but then when I come down here, it doesn't really match up too well. I don't know. But obviously, you can see the plastic here of the figure has actually kind of split as you get closer to the tail, which is not a good sign for the durability of this one. But as you lead out, pretty much the same kind of skin texture, just much finer as you move into the tail, with a few trailing osteoderms and a little bit of a curve to the tail as you lead out, which looks pretty cool, I guess. But pretty much the same thing over here. The only real differences that you'll see, of course, would be the positioning of the legs being slightly different from side to side. Everything else is going to look pretty close to the same. The eye paint is kind of placed fairly decently. My camera doesn't want to focus on it. You can see it looks okay. It does have a bit of a gloss coat there on the eye. But everything else looks pretty much the same as, you know, what we had seen on the first side of the figure. Wow, that's crazy. Mine is actually missing the fax app code. Wow, I did not realize that at first. So I guess we can't even scan this one. I'm going to have to get another one whenever I see another one in store and, you know, get the code from that one, I guess, because somehow this one is gone. So I don't know if the sticker fell off or what, but that's kind of surprising. Or Mattel just for some reason forgot to put it on. I'm not sure, but definitely interesting. I've never in all the years of collecting and reviewing Mattel stuff had one missing the fax app. But for a size, you're going to see it at the same size as usual. Again, 7 inches roughly, yeah, or about 17.5 heading toward 18 centimeters, but not quite at 18 centimeters. And then for a height, you're looking at a little over 4¼ inches or around 11 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day human being next to our Dimetrodon. And as you can see, pretty much exactly the same size as usual. Just a little difference in the size of the sail. But it is your standard size Dimetrodon like we've had so many times up until this point. There is a comparison with your standard Dimetrodon. And now looking at the two, you can actually see that the newer one is a bit different. It almost looks like it has a similar look and feel to the older, the very first version of the Dimetrodon from Mattel, but they are still in pretty much the same size range. And then one final comparison with the Hammond Collection Dimetrodon, which you can see is just a little bit smaller than our Survival version. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Survival Dimetrodon is pretty interesting. I actually kind of like it in hand more than I thought I was going to, so that's a good thing for this one. Like, it does have an awkwardness to the sail. It almost looks like creepy, like fingers with claws and stuff coming out, so it does look very silly. But at the same time, it's got kind of a weird mutated look like it's supposed to, so it sort of like makes sense that it would look strange. But I think they pretty much did all they could when it comes to coming up with a weird mutated version of a Dimetrodon without straying way too far from what the design should kind of look like. And, you know, it's got a decent look to it when it comes to the fine detail as well. The head sculpt is a little bit different from any of the Dimetrodon we've had in the past, which is kind of fun, you know, to have just a little difference. And the teeth, I think, look well, questionable. I mean, maybe a little better because they look a little sharper than the older ones, but at the same time, they kind of stand out in a little bit more of an ugly way compared to the older ones, and also have sloppy paint for sure. The articulation is also more limited than the older Dimetrodon, especially in the neck area, so that's not really that great, but it has okay articulation, and the paint apps are decent for what they are, you know, nothing over the top, but it still looks pretty fun. So if you are interested in this, check your local Target, because that's where I found mine. Pick it up and add it to your collection, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.